Welcome to another edition of the Educational AD. We couldn't do this without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to take a moment to say thank you to all of them. First, to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. Camp Mobile, where teams communicate better. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Thank you to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD. Our guest today is Allison Fondale. Allison is a certified master athletic administrator, and she's the director of athletics at St. Mary's High School in the great state of Maryland. Allison, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Jake, thank you for having me. It's really my pleasure to be here. I'm excited to just be a part of this podcast. So thank you for having me.
Well, definitely our pleasure. Well, as you know, the life of an athletic director is very busy. So let's go ahead and get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and maybe how your involvement and love of sports led to that very first teaching and coaching job.
Sure. So I grew up in Maryland, in Fulton, Maryland, which is in between Washington, D.C. and Baltimore. I was a three-sport athlete in high school at Appleton High School. I played soccer, basketball, and lacrosse in the spring. When I was in high school, I aspired to be a college athlete. Wasn't sure which sport. I enjoyed them all, and really thought basketball was going to be my path, but really kind of became just into lacrosse, probably my sophomore and junior year, and really decided to go down that path. So I played lacrosse at Loyola College. It's now Loyola University, Maryland in Baltimore. Played there for 4 years and part of a very successful and competitive program. We played in the national championship game my senior year, had a really great experience. Got my master's degree at Loyola in 5 years, and I was able to coach with the team during that 5th year. And then I really went down the path of coaching women's college lacrosse. So I went to Duke University for 6 years, came back to Maryland, coached at the University of Maryland. I was an assistant coach and associate head coach in both of those positions. And then I had my first head coaching opportunity. I went to Ohio University. I was there for 2 years. The program, unfortunately, was dropped by the university at that time, among several other sports. I still wanted to stay in college coaching, so I got an opportunity at the United States Naval Academy, and I was there for 7 years. And the same coach that I had worked with at Maryland that had gone to Navy, that was Cindy Timshaw, so I was able to coach with her for 8 years. And after the 7th year, I became really interested in administration and was looking at different opportunities. And St. Mary's, just so people are familiar, is literally within walking distance from the Naval Academy, so right in downtown Annapolis. So I saw the position, applied for the position, and I'm now going into my 7th year at St. Mary's.
What were some of the key leaders or mentors that you've had either as a high school or college athlete, or even in your career, that in your job at St. Mary's, you can still hear their voice, their encouragement in the things that you do?
Absolutely. The first I would say was in high school, when I had mentioned I thought I was going to be a basketball player, and then went and decided to play lacrosse. And that was, I had a coach who was the same gentleman who introduced me to the sport. And then a couple years in, really said, Allison, this could be a great opportunity for you to play college lacrosse. And I think you have the ability and the drive to do so. So really changed that path for me. And he met with myself and my parents and had a very honest conversation. And I've learned so much from that, that the honesty and trust that you have in coaches, and they guide you down a certain path. And I really never look back. So that was Coach Total. I'm still in touch with him today, but he really had an influence on so many of us in guiding us in college and beyond. So he was certainly someone who got me on the path of lacrosse. I'd be forever grateful. I have to say I've had a lot of mentors in my life, and I'm very fortunate and have had great opportunities. And I mentioned some of the universities that I worked at. I mean, Duke was a great place to work, where the student athletes aspire for excellence in the classroom and on the lacrosse field. And there was a head coach, Kirsten Kimball, who's run the program. She's been at Duke for over 20 years now. She certainly got me started in my first, I would say, real job. And she has a tremendous work ethic, but also really cared about the student athletes beyond just lacrosse players. So I learned a lot from her. I like to say too, being at the Naval Academy for 7 years, there's a tremendous leadership institution, from the athletic director, Chet Gladchuck, to Cindy Timshaw, who was a real role model for all of the midshipmen. So I've been able to really have great mentors in my life. And even now today, our principal, Mindy Imes, she started at St. Mary's the same time that I did. So she's going into her 7th year as well. And Mindy is really a great leader. And I've learned a lot from her, her position and how she supports athletics.
You know, your college background, you know, has certainly added to your resume, your toolbox, if you will. Coming into St. Mary's, what were some things that you were, let's say, initially looking at and say, well, you know, hey, we can do a better job at that. And then now 7 years into the job, you know, what are some things that you're particularly proud of that you've brought to St. Mary's?
I would say our coaching staff. When I got to St. Mary's 7 years ago, there was a lot of turnover, particularly in our varsity head coaches. So a goal of mine was to get the right people in the right positions, and then to have them stay at St. Mary's and find people that love St. Mary's and want to be there and want to be there for a long time. And we have tremendous head coaches. I'm extremely proud of them and all that we've accomplished. So we've had a couple coaches who have been there, our swimming coach, and we had a former wrestling coach who've been there with the school for over 15 years. But then really now we've built up where we've got coaches in various positions that have been there 5, 6, 7 years now. So I'm proud of the development of our coaches and their commitment to St. Mary's. I'm especially proud of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're always looking to get the right people on the bus to
Right.
lead our teams. You know, you're a certified master athletic administrator. I had the privilege of, being there with you as you were completing your project. Take our listeners through that process as it was for you, from, passing your CAA exam and then developing your project that was ultimately led to your certification.
Absolutely. From the very beginning, I wanted to be more involved. I felt as a former college lacrosse coach coming into high school administration that I was going to have a lot to learn. So from the very beginning, I knew I had to be involved in lots of different aspects, especially the state. So I'm now part of the MSADA, the Maryland State Athletic Directors Association. I represent the MIAA as their district rep. I've done that for over 5 years now. Just wanted to get involved, and I started taking as many courses as possible. So MIAA is a great organization, and they offer so many different classes in all different areas, and I found them extremely valuable. One, the content of the classes, but then networking with athletic directors throughout the country who were giving me great ideas. So I've now taken over 20 classes, have completed as many certifications as possible, but again, just felt that it was learning. I really have high regard for professional development. So passed the CAA exam, and then knew that the CMAA was something that I wanted to do. Fortunately for us, at St. Mary's, the administration has embraced a lot of initiatives that I have wanted to start. And one of them was 2 years ago, we partnered with Play Like a Champion out of the University of Notre Dame, which is a great program for Catholic schools and about incorporating the Catholic mission into high school athletics. So part of that partnership is they provide resources to athletic programs in schools. So we started 2 programs. One was a CHAMPS program that was dedicated to student athletes in service. And the other one was our SAIL program, student athletes in leadership. So we're going into our 3rd year with CHAMPS, but SAIL, we're entering our 2nd year. So I was really proud of how SAIL developed this year and the things that we were able to do with it. And Kristen Sheehan, who's the director of Play Like a Champion, we were supposed to speak at the NCEA conference this year about SAIL so we could help other schools implement leadership, structured leadership for their student athletes. Unfortunately, that was canceled. So that really got the both of us thinking of really laying things out of how can we help other schools implement student athletes in leadership. So we, after putting that together with Kristen, I also realized this would be a great opportunity for a CMAA project. So I started to, again, continue to just add to what exactly we did at St. Mary's for our student, our SAIL program, as we call it. And we started the last summer at this time where student athletes were nominated by coaches. And these were team captains, but also those students in our school that demonstrated great leadership and promise on the field, a sophomore or junior that maybe wasn't named an athletic captain yet, but we really wanted to develop them. And what I mean by that is we felt like at St. Mary's that a team captain is named a captain. Maybe they would have the C on their jersey or they're wearing the armband, but what are we doing to help them? We have high expectations for our team captains, but what are we doing to guide them and to help them develop them into leaders? So, Kristen was a huge asset regarding resources, and then also the Naval Academy. As I said, there were great leaders and mentors there. So one of their sports psychologists who works with the midshipmen, he was also a consultant with our program. So we would have meetings, and they've developed a team captains program. It's a lot more intensive. Their team captains have a retreat. They go to Gettysburg for a weekend over the summer, but we took many of their concepts, and some of them were captains of the captains, where we voted on who would be 2 senior boys and 2 senior girls that would be our captains of the captains of our SAIL program, and they would be our leaders, and they would initiate and run discussions and discussion groups within the program. So we had roughly 50 students that were a part of the program in our first year. We had our 4 leaders. We would put them in small groups. We had 7 meetings throughout the year. We put them in small groups during those meetings, and we would talk about different things that were going on with their team. We'd have a teaching topic every single time that we met. So I really felt that because we had a lot of success with the program in the first year, that this would be something that I wanted to share with other ADs, and I thought this would be a great way for me to also achieve my CMAA certification. So, and as you know, after reading it, so that's a long-winded way to discuss our SAIL program, but thank you for asking.
No, it was a great project, great presentation, and I may have to schedule a time where you can record that, and so we can share it with our Florida ADs.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about COVID. Certainly had an impact, across the country, and still impacting our programs. What were some things that you did this spring when COVID first hit with your kids and your coaches? And, what's going on right now in the state of Maryland? Certainly we've seen a variety of responses from state to state. Some are delaying, some are full speed ahead. But, what were some of the things you did this past spring? And what's the outlook in Maryland for the fall?
Okay, so in March, the last day that we were in school in the state of Maryland was the last day of one of our SAIL meetings. So I had a meeting with the students, and we kind of talked about all of these what if scenarios, and then it came out that we wouldn't be returning to school. At least we thought it was going to be 2 weeks, and we didn't return to school. So we had one more SAIL meeting when it came out that sports were canceled. I met with the group. We talked about the implications and what that meant. I thought that, and this was all via Zoom, I thought it just was important to talk with our leaders about how they were going to help each other and what were they going to do for their teams. We gave them some ideas of how to continue to be a leader of the team, even though you're not with your team right now. What are things that you can do? So those are things we talked about. I had coaches meetings for the first time. So we have had 3 so far of all the varsity head coaches. And this is something I'm going to continue to implement throughout the year when we return to school. I think it's important that we have these monthly meetings. I looked at it and said, wow, this is something I probably should have been doing and incorporating all along. We've wanted to have monthly coaches meetings. At St. Mary's, the majority of our coaches do not work in the school. It was really difficult to get everyone together. And I also am very cognizant of the amount of time that our head coaches are giving to our programs. So another meeting, I always felt I can send an email, but we tried to limit as many group meetings and thought that once a month was too much. These Zoom meetings that we've had with the entire group have been really great. We've had good discussion. So that's something that I've learned from COVID. Wow, that I've taken from this. We can get everybody together and we don't have to drive to school. We can get together online and have a productive meeting. Now, the state of Maryland right now, so that St. Mary's is part of our co-ed school, and our boys are part of a private school league, and our girls are as well. So 18 schools are part of both leagues, and they have different rules. Now, in the spring, both schools had a joint discussion to cancel the spring season. They're continuing to have a joint discussion. So we don't necessarily follow MPSSA, which is our public school for the state of Maryland, but we work together to see what they are doing. So right now, we were supposed to start football on August 10th, and then August 12th and 17th for some of our other sports. And then the leagues came out and have delayed that start until September 1st. So that is where we are in the state of Maryland. Now there's different counties with our public schools, and the majority of them have come out and said they are going to do distance learning. Some counties in the state of Maryland have already canceled fall and winter sports. We are not one of them. We're still, again, we've delayed and are continuing to reevaluate. So our next meeting is August 12th, and then we will evaluate where we are at that point. So not every county has decided what they are doing for sports in the state of Maryland.
Kind of a similar outlook in Florida. Up here in my area in the Panhandle, schools have been conditioning all summer for the most part, and I think the majority of them would say, hey, we're ready to go. Down in the southern part of the state, Miami-Dade and Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach County, most of those schools haven't even been back on campus since spring. And so it's a lot of uncertainty. Our state association finally weighed in, and we were scheduled to start fall practices this past Monday, the 27th, but that's been pushed off basically a month until August 24th. And so if you want to practice, you can. If you choose not to, you don't, but it's still very much up in the air in Florida.
We have some schools who haven't in our league that have not started. We are doing some conditioning in small groups, and this is our 3rd week of offering that for our student athletes.
Yeah, we're in phase 2. Protocols, conditioning in pods and things like that. But it's funny to sit in on some of the statewide Zooms and listen to what's happening in other parts of the state. Florida's, I'm just saying the obvious, Florida's a little bit bigger than Maryland,
yes.
But sounds like we have some of the similar concerns. Let's go and shift gears a little bit. What are some of the favorite parts of the job for you? What gets you excited each morning to get up and go to work?
And one of the reasons I wanted to get into administration was coaching our coaches and getting into high school athletics in particular, of getting to know the student athletes and really being able to guide them. And one of the things that I really enjoy is having meetings with our college advisor, and we sit down with families and we say, what are your goals? What do you want to do? And really guiding them throughout that college process. So for me, that is one of my favorite things, is getting to know the student athletes, knowing what their goals are, and then helping them get there, helping them achieve their goals. And they're different for everybody. We've got top athletes that play Division I athletics, and we've got two sport athletes playing Division III athletics, whatever their goals are. We've got a hockey player who wanted to major in culinary arts, and so we have that for next year, which was a first for me. So we were a part of that process with her and finding the right fit for her. So that really is one of my favorite things. St. Mary's is also a small community, and it is a great place. It's very supportive. We have a very supportive administration, but parents and families are always looking out to help each other and support each other. So I've been really just excited to be a part of that community for the past 6 years.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely exciting to work with those kids. This past spring, in addition to COVID, we also saw an increased awareness with regards to social issues. From your perspective, there in the Annapolis area, what are some things that we can do as athletic directors to do a better job, with our kids, with our coaches in this regarding social issues?
Right. First and foremost, I'd say increase communication about about our country, and normally, anything. I think coaches should be talking about what is going on and being teachers to our student athletes. But I do feel an increase in communication. We've implemented some things at our high school so we can improve in this area. I've had a really productive conversation with Nady, not in our conference, and about some things that we want to implement when our schools play each other to bring our teams and our schools together. So I really believe that talking to our student athletes and continuing to educate them, not acting like it's not your area as a coach, keeping it strictly as athletics, but opening up and having those discussions is the first step to helping our coaches and to helping our athletic directors.
I appreciate you sharing that. Well, gosh, Allison, we've kind of gotten to the end, but we always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. You're certainly a seasoned athletic director now, and your task is to send out a brand new AD on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 items in their toolbox. What 3 things are going to go in Allison Fondale's athletic director toolbox?
Okay, so I would say the first one would be a calendar, a Google Calendar, so you can prioritize. I felt in my first year that I wanted to do everything. I still feel like I want to do everything. It's a little bit harder. It was harder my first year than it is now. You really have to prioritize and what do you need to get done that day. And as you know, there's so many different areas, which is one of the reasons I love this position, is that I'm involved in so many different aspects of athletic administration. So you have to really prioritize on a daily and a weekly and then a monthly basis. So the first thing I would recommend for any new athletic administrator is a Google Calendar, and having it on your phone so you're getting those alerts and you're early for meetings and you can track everything. So I did implement the Google Calendar about several years ago, and what a difference that has made for me. The second thing or advice that I would give was to be involved. So like I said, again, is having your phone, but you want to be reaching out to other athletic directors as resources. And I met you because you spoke at the national conference, and I was impressed with the videos in your presentation, and I emailed you and you wrote me back and you shared the information with me. And then you read my CMAA. So it really, that all started with me, one, being involved and going to the national conference and then reaching out. So, and following up, I feel that reaching out to athletic directors that you may not know will be very valuable. There's so many resources out there. In the spring, we did a senior night, and it was a parade that we did for our seniors. It was a wonderful event, but I got the idea from an athletic director in California. So it's so really reaching out and being involved as much as you can will help you throughout the process. And I guess lastly, as an athletic director, I think being a listener, especially when you're starting off your career, is you don't want to change everything at a school and implement things. That you have to really, you have to be a listener, listen to your student athletes, and you have to listen to your coaches and take their advice. So it's that's one of the reasons I think our SAIL program has been successful, is we listen, we ask them to bring challenges forward to the athletic department so we can help them and increase that communication, but we're just listening to them. And I listen to the administration and I listen to our coaches, and they say, Allison, we don't love this logo that we're using, and can we think about this? And I'm saying, you know what? All right, what can we do better in that area? So I really, being a good listener from the very beginning, the onset that you start a position can really help you.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic advice. The reaching out part, we were talking about how coaches like to keep secrets. Athletic directors are the opposite. We love to, share ideas. And, I think any good idea that I've ever had, it wasn't mine. I stole it from another AD or, picked it up at a clinic. Well, Allison, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been great, sharing this time with you.
Thank you for having me, Jake.
Oh, absolutely. We're going to be talking later about that program.
Wonderful.
To our listeners, thank you so much for being a part of this. Come back next time for another edition of the Educational AD.